The next presentation is Andy Lee, and he's going to talk about a revolutionary way of learning new languages. Okay, some people went to the restroom. Here's my leader here, and he's telling me, stop the process.
We can keep talking.
Foreign language. We want to teach it better, faster, more effectively. So let me start by asking two questions. How does a 5-year-old speak perfectly fluent English despite not knowing the present tense, past tense, or conditional tense? How did you learn the word entrepreneur? These two examples suggest that we aren't always taught languages explicitly. In fact, we learn them subconsciously. And it's concept coined comprehensible input by leading linguistics scholar Stephen Krajnik. He states that as long as we understand a message, be it a newspaper article or a dialogue, our brains will naturally deconstruct the underlying grammar patterns and unknown vocabulary simply through context and exposure. This is the premise behind Backpack. So let's go back to the word entrepreneur. Initially, we had no idea what it meant. Then you hear it on the street. Then you see it in a newspaper article. Each time, your brain is given a hint, a little bit of intuition. Strung together over time, this becomes automatic understanding. That's why when I say the word entrepreneur, it just makes sense. We want to teach using this idea of comprehensible input. So we tested this hypothesis. We said, let's forget the grammar structures. Let's forget the repetitive vocabulary exercises. And let's just teach by supplying learners with lots and lots of input that they can understand. So this semester, we ran a pilot course involving 4 heritage speakers of Chinese. And we said, all right, here's the phonetic system of Chinese, sound out the words, and let's increment the reading levels. In 4 months, Daniel Wang, sitting right there, goes from not being able to understand one single character in Chinese to just recently finishing a children's novel in Chinese. We want to take this one step further. This is where our tech platform comes in. The question is, how do you continually supply learners with comprehensible input even as they progress? We're creating a tech platform that is going to organize the world's content, TV shows, movies, books, based on skill level and genre, and create an easy-to-use interface that delivers this to users all across the world. Moreover, we're going to equip this platform with a suite of features, algorithms that display TV shows and movies based on an optimal blend of words and structures you don't know. A closed captioning system that displays text based on your skill level. So we're taking comprehensible input, a superior method, and we're hacking it with technology. We're leveraging today's technology, natural language processing, machine learning, to make this, to optimize this entire process. This is what Backpack is. This is what the future of language learning is. The research has been proven. It's there. No one denies it. The technology is there. We're simply here to synthesize and make it happen. We're Backpack, and we want to teach the world a second language. So right now I'm going to introduce a few of my team members that are going to come up and help me answer some questions. And so I brought one person from each group. We have a tech team making the platform right now. We have a research team going through. So we have a business team and also Daniel, come up. And Daniel, I'm going to bring Daniel up in case you have questions about the pilot course. So AJ lead, Ollie, research lead, Tanner's helping me do the business, and then Daniel is coming up, a student of the pilot course.
Please.
I'm going to begin with the same question I began with the last week, which is that I feel as if you told us about the product, but not about the business. So can you tell us something about the business?
Sure. So this summer we're actually running so we've already done a pilot course, and we feel like we've learned our lessons. And so this summer we're actually running a summer course in Southern California that is actually going to be teaching Chinese. And so right now we're offering two classes. One is an intensive boot camp class, and the other is a less intensive class, but it's also designed for heritage speakers. And heritage speakers are basically people like, say, Andy, me, or Daniel, who grew up speaking Chinese to their parents, but we never really learned how to read or write. And so we're just focused on really giving them a lot of reading material that will really, really, really speed up their learning processes. So we're saying that in 2 months, our course will run 2 months, we will be able to get a heritage speaker like Daniel up to the level where he can actually read a newspaper and generally get the gist of any article. Right, and so for the tech platform that we mentioned, that is actually we're still in the process of developing the tech platform. But ideally, we would also be a subscription-based business model where users would pay to be able to have articles recommended to them, have content like videos, like music, constantly be given to them in their feed when they log into the website.
So I just want to add on to that and say, right now we're playing with two business models. There's Elan, which is our summer course, and that is taking the approach of a physical learning center. And then there's Backpack, which is our tech platform. And both of them inform each other. So by using Elan, we can see how we interact with our students and learn how they learn. With Backpack, we're able to reach a huge amount of users and see all these trends using big data. So essentially, the two are complementing each other. They are two different business models that we are currently employing.
So I still don't understand precisely the basis on which someone is acquiring language and how that interaction happens between the student and the information they're receiving.
So we teach through this method called comprehensible input. As Andy mentioned, it's a contextualized way to learn the language. Current methods out there like Rosetta Stone, Duolingo, sort of big players in language learning, they don't use a contextualized approach, which means that they, for example, Rosetta Stone provides you with a picture or a scene, and they ask you to match the word or match the phrase to that picture. That's not very contextualized because the word is in and of itself. Through comprehensible input, and what Stephen fashioned terms the I+1 hypothesis, which basically means that you provide readers with a level that they can understand, reading or movies or shows, at the level that they can understand, but provide them with a level that is also a little harder. So say you're at level 2, right? We're going to provide you with the level of input that's just a little bit more than what you can understand. Because that will facilitate the contextualized learning. You'll be able to understand most of the terminology within your reading, but there may be some terminology that you may not understand. And through context and by knowing the other words surrounding the words you don't know, over time you'll acquire those words. So that's sort of the input that we give the user.
Joe?
I think I find the fact that there are two business cases here that are to some extent mingled to be somewhat confusing. The majority of the business plan talks about Backpack, but does not talk about the classroom experience in the financials. Talk about the classroom program and really don't relate to Backpack. So I'm left confused. I think I can imagine how a classroom company might operate. Would you tell me more about Backpack?
So actually, I'm the founder of Elan/Backpack, and it started with a simple story of during my gap year, I signed up for formal classes, didn't work, and I embarked on this. I sort of fell into comprehensive input. But the reason why I'm mentioning this is because I've always seen, I'm a computer science major and a mathematics major, so I love technology. And I see backpack as sort of the revolution behind language learning. But in order to do that, I realize we have financial limitations. And in order to break into the market, I'm going to have to test the method, which is why I decided to start using Elan. Elan is sort of, the way I see it, hopefully going to be a benefactor for the backpack and supply the funding necessary to get it off the ground. And so that's why Elan, I think it's something that we can do well right now, and it's a viable business model, which is why we're doing it this summer. But eventually, the big player is really going to be backpack.
Can you talk to us a little bit about your view of what backpack will cost to implement and what the financial result will be?
Sure, absolutely. So the first key is going to be recruiting. Because like you said, after putting together this team, I think putting the right pieces on board, accounting for flakes, whatever, and having people that really believe in the mission is key. So that's essentially the way I see things playing out. But the reason why I say that is because I want to recruit co-founders. I don't want to hire people right off the bat. Because I want these people to be just as excited about this idea so that they can drive it forward. And so, after I've recruited this team, which I don't think will take money, because I'm offering them equity, we're going to apply to an incubator, and hopefully that will allow us to further backpack without accumulating some crazy costs.
Does this teaching method exist but not in a technology-based form? And is that a natural audience for you? How do you find the audience?
Find the audience?
The users.
Right. So, comprehensible input, it works. Like, there's so much research to back it up. The problem that I mentioned was you need a specific environment, right? You need that I+1 so that you're constantly engaged. That's why it's not mainstream right now, because no one can do it effectively. And so it really just comes down to, wow, I'm so enthralled by comprehensible input. It's such an easy way to learn. Like, just pick up a book that you understand and start enjoying it and learning. But that's sort of the motivation, right? No one has done it effectively. No one has approached it from this computer science angle. But the tools today afford us the possibility. And these tools have just matured recently enough to allow us to do so. Does that answer the question?
By schools, you mean places that are currently teaching language?
Right.
Or this is an additional?
So your question is, why isn't this mainstream right now?
Or why will people pick it up and use it? How will they find you?
How are they gonna, so basically, how are we gonna acquire users, right? That is the fundamental question. I think the hardest question is, how do you get people excited about comprehensible input? Because essentially what we're doing right now, no one's really doing. We're essentially the pioneers behind this idea of comprehensible input. So frankly, no one even believes it. So you're not gonna teach grammar, you're not gonna have people memorize vocabulary. Frankly, I'm skeptical. I think it's just going to come results. The results are very, very evident, even simply through a simple pilot course like this. Actually, we have data, if we can bring it up still, that shows all 4 students consistent progress. Not one of them, all of them made progress throughout the course. And this is taking a course on a volunteer basis and not even doing homework. So just imagine the possibilities if this is a full-time course.
Just a second. So I want to expand because it seemed like what you're asking is how are you going to draw people into this course? So speaking as someone who got drawn into this course, there are a lot of people in America who come from immigrant families, and their parents speak a foreign language, and there are a lot of people who don't know how to speak that foreign language, and it kind of sucks, honestly. So I have been through a few years of Chinese school. And it was pretty bad, I'll say that. And when I heard about this course, trying to make is people are interested in learning their second language. And when you tell them they can learn their language by watching TV and singing along to music videos and reading Insanity in Chinese, like, that kind of draws me in. People want this. That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to get my thoughts a little bit.
I want to focus on that niche. What is limiting you to sons and daughters of immigrants? Why not, if I want to learn to speak Russian, why not Russian?
That's a very strategic question. And the reason why I chose to attack this niche market is because I've been through this process personally. So I know exactly what it takes to bring a heritage speaker to Chinese. And the reason why I chose to focus on this niche market is because it's our strength right now. And I want to use this niche market to mature our curriculum, fix out all the bugs, before we tackle a bigger market like the English-speaking market, like the foreign language-speaking market.
And I'm sorry.
So I just want to summarize what I think is your answer. The focus on the immigrant, the filter of immigrants, really has more to do with the classroom component, not backpacks.
Yep. Exactly.
And I'm actually sort of going a little bit to the same place. So we began hearing about a product that is essentially an online technology product. And then we started talking about a bricks and mortar situation, the economics of which are extraordinarily different. And now we're hearing about a niche market versus a mass market, and there is almost nothing about a technology platform that wants to be a niche market, it wants to be a mass market,
right.
But maybe bricks and mortar does want to be a niche market. What I'm trying to understand is the extent to which the niche market and the bricks and mortar, whose economics I deal with every day and are very difficult, to what extent are those essentially a beta test, and to a certain extent, they're actually just an expense?
Yeah.
Versus really their business model? Or is that, no, this is going to be kind of our beta test and we're going to perfect our product, but the actual business is really intended to be a technology business?
So if I'm getting the question clear, it's basically the idea of, could I elaborate a little bit of how I'm using these small stepping stones to perfect the business model?
Really, to oversimplify my question is, do you think you're going to make money teaching people in the classroom, or do you think you're going to spend money teaching people in the classroom to perfect a product that you're going to make money on a technology platform?
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. The point is, comprehensible input as of right now, I think is competitive enough because it's effective enough and fast enough that there is a physical need, a need for it in terms of a physical classroom. And we can implement that from today. Right, so I do think there is, it's good enough that it beats the competing methods out there today. That's why I think there's a need for it, and that we'll make money using the physical classroom. In terms of growth potential, I think that's limiting, and that's why eventually we want to expand this into the tech platform.
All right, well, I'm going to stop you on that for a second, because here's really where my question goes back to. I'm not questioning whether it'll work in the classroom.
Okay.
My question is, will you make money on it in the classroom? And if you think you will, why do you think that? What do you think about the numbers that makes you think you will make money in the classroom?
So if you go to Asia, and you go to any big city, Taipei, Shanghai, Tokyo, Hong Kong, you'll see the streets littered with English tutoring prep centers. But they're all using the same outdated approach. Teach them grammar, teach them vocabulary words, yada, yada, yada. So all we're saying is, we have a superior method. We're using the same type of business model. We're going to be faster. We're going to be more fun, more engaging. That's why I think we're going to be competitive. It's as simple as that.
Okay, let's move to the audience. Let's go from left to right. Go ahead. Let's raise your voice so I can repeat the question.
Okay, I want to build on your line of questions because I also work in the States. Having a solution that works is necessary but not sufficient. So I want to understand a little bit more your precision in terms of if you have limited dollars, you can address one market initially.
physical classroom teaching with limited resources. Yeah, I think it takes a lot less to get that going. All you really need to do is you need to rent out a small classroom, which we're doing. You need to find one teacher, you commit it. So the overhead cost is very small. If you're talking about reaching a mass amount of users, now you need a development team, now you need a server, now you need like a campaign to find users. It just takes a lot more.
Next question. Yes.
So I have a question directed to the backpack, your online platform. So I'm from Hong Kong and I learned English when we were at the integrated education.
Yeah.
And I find speaking a very effective way of learning a language. So how are you going to put forward into backpack online?
So I'll let Ollie start by explaining the idea behind output and input, and then I'll let AJ expand on how the tech platform is going to work.
So we totally agree with the idea that input and output is very effective for learning language. I can take the example of our pilot course this semester. In our pilot course, during the classroom, we had reading and watching movies. We implemented those aspects of language learning within the classroom. Outside of the classroom, we had created this environment where students could go either with the Chinese Association at Swarthmore or their language partners, and they could go and have a dinner, have a meal with them twice a week, and that would sort of facilitate the input and output process. We don't want to necessarily force the output process. Our research has shown that if you try to force output when somebody's not ready, that makes it increasingly difficult and more burdensome for the individual. So it's better if you give them time to get the necessary input so that they can have the output. So that's something that we've implemented.
Thanks.
I'm curious about content and copyright issues. If you really can't teach with, like, say, Harry Potter, can you? Otherwise, why would Rosetta Stone do that? Are you come up with your own contents? How are you going to get around these copyright issues? All these things you've listed.
Content issues. Yeah.
Sure. So I mean, I think everyone knows those costs are really, we're not ready for those kinds of costs yet, right? So at first, we're going to be using content that is acceptable to use. And I mean, if we're talking about, say, looking in terms of service, YouTube's terms of service indicate that in terms of commercial rights, the only restriction is you can't restrict access to YouTube. You can't ask people to pay to go on YouTube. So say if we're watching music videos in class, we're not restricting the user's access to the music video. We're just showing the video in class. So that's fine. Now, if we were to move on to, say, watching episodes of TV shows on Netflix and, say, using movies, we would have to contact the distributors and ask for those, and pay them for those rights to show those materials in our classroom. So, ultimately, that is what we want to do. But right now, we're not ready for those costs. So we're going to stick to content that is out there that is acceptable for us to use, but is also relevant to our purposes.
Thanks.
Yeah. Short question. How many new languages you guys have learned using your system?
Sorry, using
How many languages have you learned using your system?
Besides English and Chinese, and all the
Sure. Well, right now I'm learning Japanese.
So I've learned to a fluent degree Chinese, and that took a process of about a year. But during that process, I also used the comprehensible input method to learn 2 dialects of Chinese, not only Mandarin, Taiwanese, and Cantonese. And
Thanks. Go ahead.
Back to the how much money do you expect to make? Has anyone on this team researched the actual budgeting and spending dollars in the public school systems or private school systems on language development? Has anyone done the trend analysis?
no, we haven't even looked at, to be frank, we haven't really considered the idea of private and public schools. We've decided that very early on that we're going to do this as a private corporation type of deal.
Your niche is schools,
Question.
is that right?
So we're opening up language learning centers, private language learning centers, and that's how we're going to get our customers.
But they have not schools. Go ahead.
Why would I come to your private learning center when I can do comprehensive input on my own? think it's a question of what we can provide, of course. And so what we do provide is a service that tailors it specifically to you. You know, I don't think everybody out there has the time and resources to figure out what is comprehensible input to them. So in other words, using our machine learning and natural language processing algorithms, of course, we're going to figure out, you know, we're going to parse and search articles. We're going to make inferences about them, specifically two things. One is their difficulty relative to the user, and two is their content. And we tailor that specifically to you. So for example, if you're interested in reading about current events in a target language, say Spanish, we'll find it, you know, we'll see, you know, we'll determine your level. We'll say, okay, you're at level 3, we'll find something at like a little higher than level 3, and we'll find it in Spanish, and we'll find it about the current events that you want to read about. And so I think, have I answered your question, sir?
Okay. Thank you very